YouTube Ozic the Goat House is back, and we are at the end of week 1 of NFL free agency. There was some big time signings this week. We broke them down and graded them in our most recent videos, a playlist full of those videos. You can check them out, but there's a lot of solid free agents still left. That's what this video is. The best remaining free agents. Will start by the top guys remaining. Talk about some sleeper / under the radar guys, some guys that were recently cut, some forgot about guys, maybe some solid players still out there ready to be signed. Some may be signed as I'm talking in this video. So join us on our channel for full NFL coverage. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Follow us on Twitter for the latest news, rumors, updates, instant analysis on some of these signings. Link pinned in the comments for that, as well as our Discord, as well as our sponsors. GLD Shop, Liquid IV, Walk the Mock, Code GOAT. Links down below. Have the Max Crosby chain on from the GLD Shop. They got some cool things like that there, so check it out. The very best available, in my opinion, and we're going to talk about, like, if my math's right, like 57 guys, some random number, a lot of guys in this video. But Lamar Jackson is a free agent under the franchise tag, so you can negotiate with him. Any team can negotiate with him. If they end up signing him, Ravens have a chance to match the offer. If they don't, that team sends 2 first-round picks. So not your, normal free agent here. He's under the franchise tag, but he's available. He's available for the right price. And its latest I heard is no teams are showing interest right now, but there probably will be some interest, maybe not at his full asking price after the draft, because there's a lot of good quarterbacks in the draft, especially at the top of the draft. Somebody's bound to miss out on their guy and not get a quarterback. So then that is the point where they may show some interest in Lamar Jackson. Bobby Wagner, former Rams, former Seahawks linebacker, is available. He was surprisingly cut by the Rams, who kind of went in that rebuild mode there. Is available. I heard he was talking to a few teams. Yeah, I could see him landing on. There was some talk about going back to the Seahawks. Still possibility. They did sign Devin Bush. That's not a signing that really eliminates them from Bobby Wagner. But they do have Jordan Brooks over there who they like a lot as well. Maybe they run with that duo, Bush and Brooks. We'll see. I heard about the Cowboys. I thought the Lions was a pretty good spot. They brought back Anzalone for that inside linebacker position. Then you got teams like the Bills and the Eagles that could show interest as well, possibly. C.J. Gardner-Johnson still available, the defensive back from the Eagles. When he was with the Saints, he played a lot in the slot. With the Eagles, he played pretty much all over the place. Slot and then both safety positions. Made some plays on the ball as a safety. And he's still sitting around. This really isn't surprising to me, actually. It might surprise some people, but yeah, it sounded like he was probably asking for a lot, like a top-tier safety money, and you can definitely argue he's worth that because he's a talented football player. He had an incredible year with the Eagles. But again, when he was with the Saints, he was a slot corner, and they traded him for next to nothing because they didn't want to pay him. He wanted that money, and it was surprisingly low of what they got. And that it kind of factors into what's going on right now. A lot of teams just view him as a slot guy, and they like him. They like him there. They would love to have him there, but how much are you going to pay, a guy like that? Though even the top tier slot corners, they're getting paid under $10 million per year, so he's not going to accept that. So a handful of teams are just valuing him around that range, that position, that range. And then you got some teams that they're probably like, okay, we can use him like the Eagles did. We can use him in the slot. We can use him at safety. How many teams are going to view him that way? How many of those teams need a guy like that right now? Maybe not too many. And then how many guys are willing to pay, or teams have the money willing to pay? So it really, get my point here, it really limits the landing spots, the fits, and the who values him that much. So could go back to the Eagles for cheaper than he was looking for. Heard the Broncos were pretty interested. That was a few days ago. Nothing's happened. I could see the Falcons, who still got some spending money. I think they can use him in the slot, and they can use him at the strong safety spot. They do have a free safety now in Jesse Bates, and they might like one of Grant or Hawkins at strong safety, so maybe they just only view him as a slot, and they might be interested, but not the price point he is willing to accept. The Saints, could he go back to the Saints? They're only really going to view him as a slot guy. Are they going to pay what he's looking for? They already weren't going to pay that, so Cardinals got Jonathan Gannon. Could he be interested? Possibility. I'm mainly looking at the Eagles, the Broncos, some of those other teams I mentioned, like the Falcons, the Cardinals, maybe. Some people mentioning the Bengals. I don't really see. I mean, it could happen, but I mean, Mike Hilton's one of maybe the very best slot corner in football. So they're not going to use him there. And they have Daxton Hill, who kind of can play all over the place. And they brought in Nick Scott, who kind of can play strong or free. They're talking about Taylor Rapp, who can play strong or free. So I don't know if they're looking to spend big on this position when they're not going to use all of the above, like all the positions for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Dalton Schultz, tight end from the Cowboys, still available. It sounds like he's definitely going to go elsewhere from the Cowboys, but now things kind of get interesting. The Cowboys are kind of, the only thing they really did was make that splash trade for Stephon Gilmore, which was great, but haven't done much else. Maybe they're kind of sitting around and see if Schultz is willing to take less or his market goes down and they grab him. I think it's a possibility now. I like the Chargers as an option, who actually have some cap space now, but they just brought back Donald Parham a little bit earlier. Maybe the Packers, maybe the Texans, teams like that. I mean, the Bengals could use a tight end, but they're not willing to spend as much as Schultz is going to get. So another one I really don't see for the Bengals. So that's a big-time offensive weapon to look out for here. Odell Beckham Jr., which had that workout. About 11 teams were there. The Cowboys weren't one of them, but the Cowboys still in the mix here. Here about the top 3 landing spots are Cowboys, Ravens, and Chiefs. The Vikings made sense to me. Kevin O'Connell being there. They're at his workout. They move over from Adam Thielen. I think his asking price is too high, so maybe the Vikings kind of go down the list a little bit in terms of the landing spots, but still on there. Maybe the Bills are still on there as well, perhaps, but they're probably moving down the list. The Jets have been mentioned a bit. They would like to have them. How much can they spend? But then you look at the top 3 mentioned landing spots. I'm looking at the Ravens. How much could they actually spend, and is it appealing when they don't have, for Odell with the Lamar situation? With the Lamar situation, how much can they spend? Where are they at in terms of the cap hit for Lamar this year? It could differ. It could change. Chiefs lost Juju. Cowboys were already in on Beckham Jr. and they're looking for somewhere else. So I definitely put those 2 teams at the top. Frank Clark, who's a playoff machine, and when you need him most, he plays some pretty damn good football, even in clutch, big time games at the end of the season. So still definitely a good player. I leave it open for him to go back to the Chiefs. They did bring in Charles Omenihu. It doesn't close the window on him for Clark. But I like the Falcons for him, who have a pretty good free agency, but they're still looking for an edge rusher. I like the Saints, who need to replace maybe Marcus Davenport, and they actually have some space to work with, believe it or not, right now. The Texans still looking for the pass rusher. The Bears are as well. The Bears seem very picky, though. Maybe the Texans too. They kind of seem picky on what they're looking for. So we'll see. Leonard Floyd. Pretty good 3-4, different from Frank Clark. Frank Clark plays the 4-3 end. Leonard Floyd, an edge rusher that plays 3-4 outside linebacker. Pretty good guy available here. I could definitely see the Panthers. Been my prediction. Looking for another edge to fit their new 3-4. Ejiro Evero's there, who's coached Leonard Floyd. That makes sense. Brandon Staley and the Chargers would make sense, but they do have Bosa and Mack, but sometimes they use Bosa as like a 3-4 end sometimes. So they could still use Floyd. I could see the Seahawks as well, the Titans, maybe the Ravens, teams like that. John Johnson, the safety of the Browns, who was kind of a surprise cut. They replaced with Juan Thornhill. I could see him with the Chargers. I kind of talked about that in the past, and once he is officially released now. The Chargers should show some interest. Played under Brandon Staley there. He could go elsewhere, but I feel like the Chargers is the spot. Adrian Amos, safety from the Packers. Could have some landing spots as well. Teams that, could the Eagles grab him to play strong safety? The Packers could bring him back. They cleared some space, not using it yet. I could list the Chiefs. He would fit their cover 2 concepts. They lost a safety, more of a free safety they lost though. You can name quite a few teams here for Adrian Amos. The Bengals, and they're filling it elsewhere. So an interesting one, which he had a little bit of an off year last year. Before that, it looked like a top 10 safety. You probably need him in one of those split safety schemes there, which there's some teams that could be interested. He, much like Jordan Poyer, signed a couple days ago, a better safety, obviously. But with the contract details came out about that, him re-signing with the Bills, ridiculously cheap. And that was probably because he's limited on landing spots because he's kind of a cover 2 guy. Amos kind of in the same boat. So Poyer's contract could affect Amos. He could be a little bit cheaper than expected as well. So maybe things kind of get kickstarted on him with Poyer officially signing and the details coming out. Some more guys. Adam Thielen available, was a somewhat recent cut from the Vikings. took a visit with the Panthers, left without signing. I think he's probably getting offered less money than what he thought. Maybe a shot he goes back to the Vikings on a cheaper deal. Maybe the Chiefs are a possibility there, some other teams as well, but maybe not getting as much money as you thought. The receiver market kind of not super expensive, and he had took a step down last year. Donovan Smith was released not too long ago from the Bucks. An experienced tackles available. Teams looking for tackles, and overall he had some solid play with the Bucks. He gave up some pressure here and there. He's one of those guys that got ripped quite a bit, but he's a decent player. Arguably the best tackle available as a free agent right now. Isaac Sumalo, another Eagles guy that's probably not getting offered as much as he thought because teams will wonder if it's kind of a scheme thing and the talent around him in Philly. I kind of wonder the same thing. But overall, you got a pretty good experienced guard here. Other the Colts as a landing spot, but his price kind of going down a little bit probably because, teams a little worried about that. Is it just a scheme/talent thing over there in Philly? Bud Dupree was officially released for the Titans. I think that was yesterday, so he's available. Heard the Steelers. You can go back to the Steelers where, this is a very talented guy. It's just durability here. I mean, in terms of his talent, like if you're telling me he's playing every game and he's going to stay healthy, he's really good. I think he creates for other players around him the way he aligns, and you don't know what he's going to do. So it's a really good player. The injuries have been, a legit concern. You can see the Steelers, could see the Seahawks, could see the Panthers, on a guy like that. Greg Gaines, the Rams nose tackle, with a guy like this, how much do you pay a nose tackle? Even though he's a pretty good one, not much. And then was he helped by playing next to Aaron Donald? We've seen that from guys in the past. Rams defensive linemen, they go out and get paid. They're not as good. Shouldn't be too much of a shocker. But Gaines, I think, is a little bit different. He's going to do his job well. I think no matter where he goes. He's a run stuffer. He's been improving in terms of getting that interior pressure. He's just not going to be super expensive because he's a nose tackle. Is he going to be on the field in the obvious passing downs? Poona Ford, defense tackle from the Seahawks, who they replaced him, so maybe one of the top D tackles available here. Those teams that missed out could be interested in Poona Ford, maybe a guy that signs pretty soon. Yannick Ngakoue, edge rusher from the Colts. He's been bouncing around quite a bit. I mean, Ngakoue can get after the quarterback, not at an extremely high level, but he can get after the quarterback. He's pretty athletic, has some experience. He is a little bit of a liability, in terms of the run game. So is it a guy in a perfect world you have on the field in the passing down situations? But he is talented in those passing situations. But I noticed some of these other teams that still need a pass rusher. Most of them have something in common. They're also really need to upgrade stopping the run. He really doesn't help you in that field. So maybe that's why he's sitting around a little bit. When he was in the Jags early on, he was thought of a really good player there, but been bouncing around a bit. And those are the reasons for it, the reasons I explained. Kareem Hunt might be the top running back available, a really good pass catcher, solid runner, was just behind one of the very best football on Nick Chubb. He's asking for a bit, though. Kind of a guy we expected to ask for a bit. You look at the running, highest paid running back in actual free agency, forget the franchise tax free agency so far, is Miles Sanders at $6.25 million per year. Next is David Montgomery at $6 million. So I'd say Hunt was probably looking for around $8 million. He's going to have to come down to around, though. I think he's better than both those guys do other NFL teams. I don't think anyone's going to pay 7 at this point. I think 6.5 is looking like his top dollar. Will he accept that anytime soon? Will a team even pay that? Will they, the offers probably right now, he's probably was asking for 8 around there. The offers are probably around like 5.5. So we're going to have to meet in the middle a little bit, maybe closer to the NFL teams there. Mecole Hardman, he was probably asking a bit, and, it's a little risky. You wonder, he coming off the injury, and then was he just like a pure scheme fit for the Chiefs because he's fast and they get creative? Is he going to work elsewhere? We've seen some of the other guys really not look as good as well, but Hardman's a talented dude for sure. Somebody will sign him. The receiver market starting to kick into gear. Look at those receivers like Myers and Lazard got $11 million. I would have thought Hardman would have got more than Lazard actually, but now it's because he's not going to get 11, so it's not the case there. I definitely expected Myers to get more than Hardman though. It was a little bit of a surprise that Myers and Lazard got the same. But then you got guys like Paris Campbell going for dirt cheap, so it's a little mixed out there. Where is Hardman going to go? How much is he going to get there? The Packers were my prediction. Packers are being really quiet right now. Do they want to dish out that money? We'll see. We know there's some other receiver needy team. The Panthers bringing in DJ Chark for a visit as well. And speaking of DJ Chark, yeah, a pretty good speedy outside receiver that's available. I predicted the Panthers. He's actually visiting there today. There was some interest from the Giants. They could still go that route, but they did sign Paris Campbell and they brought back Slayton, but they're looking to add more. Technically, they only added one receiver, because they brought back Shepard and they brought back Slayton. They only added Paris Campbell, so they could look to add somebody else. The Giants, that is, for Chark, was I was just talking about. My prediction was the Panthers, though. There's still some other teams that need a receiver. Heard the Titans could be interested. Maybe the Packers, the Vikings still looking to replace Thielen. But speaking of the Giants, we mentioned the Giants. Marcus Peters was my prediction for the Giants because they could use a corner, specifically a man coverage corner. You got one here who actually played under their defense coordinator, Don Martindale. So Peters is, he took a step down last year, but he's still instinctive. He's still talented. Big time playmaker, so it's a guy that, somebody needs a corner. That's a guy to look out for. Like a guy like Patrick Peterson, another veteran, signed pretty damn early, but a guy like Marcus Peters still sitting around. Interesting. Myles Jack was cut yesterday. The Steelers went with more of scheme fit type guys. When they signed Myles Jack a year ago, I questioned the scheme fit, and that seemed to kind of continue to be the question. So he's available. He needs to go to a 4-3 team. Not a 3-4 team. He needs to go to a 4-3 team and play linebacker there. So, somebody, running that scheme could, that could use. I like him on the outside. He's got experience on the inside as well, but I like him as like an outside, maybe a weak side 4-3 linebacker. But I guess, linebackers were flying off the board cheap. So not too many teams out there that still need that type of linebacker, but he's a talented guy, so I'm sure he'll find a home. Shaquille Griffin was cut by the Jags, former Seahawks corner. I wondered could he go back to the Seahawks? Some other teams still looking for a corner there. There's one with experience. Ronald Darby, who's talented, but just durability issues there. Obviously, he's very talented. Could go to, a cover 4 team, a team that runs a bit of cover 4 man coverage. But again, a solid talent out there. Just the durability issues. Drew Tranquill was pretty solid for the Chargers last year. Still available. Fit that 3-4 inside role. So could maybe go back to the Chargers or somebody that's kind of looking for that. Dalton Risner, the guard of the Broncos, they went a different direction there in Denver. So he's looking to go elsewhere. Yeah, a little surprised he's still sitting out there because the other guards were kind of flying off the board a little bit. Pretty good prices, so he's still available, and that's kind of hurt him a little bit that he's still out there because he probably would have been somewhere in the. I thought Sumalo's still out there as well. I thought Sumalo, Risner, Nate Davis, and Ben Powers would all get in this about the same range. Of price, not exactly, but in the price. But then Powers got $13 million. Then Nate Davis signed not long after that for $10. They were a little split up, but I guess in the same range. And I think that knocked those guys down to these guys that are available down. Sumalo is probably asking around the Ben Powers range. He's probably not going to get it. He's probably going to get around the Nate Davis range. And Risner, who probably I thought would get paid around the Nate Davis range, probably knocked down now that he's sitting around. To a bit under that maybe. I thought maybe just a little bit under Nate Davis, maybe like $9 million based on Nate Davis' contract, but now kind of getting knocked down more as he sits. So, then Shelby Harris was cut by the Seahawks. They kind of replaced him as well. That's a really good defensive tackle there who played for the Broncos for a bit. That's just available out there, so it's a very solid one. Rock Ya-Sin, Raiders corner. Is available. Yeah, we saw some injuries pop up, inconsistency in play, but pretty good in press. He is obviously still available as well. Some more guys. Ezekiel Elliott is available. I heard the Bucs would have interest, which is weird because where are they at? They going in rebuild? They not. Some other teams still looking for running backs. I know the Bills looking for kind of a short yardage guy. Could they grab him? I think Fournette, who's listed next, I think could make some more sense. So some solid veteran running backs available. And Damian Harris had a monster season 2 seasons ago, still available. And Devin Singletary really picked it up for the Bills last year. So you see some running backs. We talked about Kareem Hunt already as well. So some solid running backs available. I mean, Zeke's the big name there. Where's he going to go? He's still a really good short yardage back, and goal line back. He actually is. He's just not as explosive, every down back that he used to be. Sean Murphy-Bunting who was having a pretty good young career, and then last year the Bucs just didn't use him a whole lot. Like, he was a factor of the Super Bowl year. He's mainly a slot corner that could play on the outside. I'd like him and maybe a man coverage scheme, because the Bucs were running a lot of that before. Then they kind of transitioned to more cover 3, which he has experience in, but maybe that's why he was playing less. He's probably one of my favorite free agents available, and like, not the best, but one of my favorites, because I still think he can get back on track. He's still a young, good corner. I liked him a lot out of Central Michigan. My favorite sleepers, maybe my most favorite sleepers, Taylor Rapp, who I liked a lot out of Washington. I don't know if the Rams really used him, right. I know they moved him around a bit where he technically played free, played strong, but the Rams just ran a ton of cover 4. Which is more split safety. I think you kind of get them on a team that moves their safeties around a bit, have them come up in the box, have them, switch it up, play free and play strong. So I think he's got a lot of upside still. Isaiah Wynn, who was a former first-round tackle, Patriots tackle, a little inconsistent play and had some injuries in the past, but he's got that experience. He's got some upside. George Fant, another tackle that could be available, could play that left or right spot. Injury durability is kind of the concern. Didn't play too many games last year, I should say. Shown some highs and some lows as well. And speaking of the Jets, Connor McGovern, not the same Connor McGovern that went from the Cowboys. There's actually 2 in the league. Went from the Cowboys to the Bills. Is the center from the Jets, who's a pretty decent center, which could go elsewhere here. I'm a little surprised he's sitting around, because this is probably one of the better centers of free agency. And you saw guys like Bradbury and Brendel signed right away. Postage went back to the Browns. So we'll see where McGovern. So the team out there still needs a center. Here's your guy. Obviously, he's asking for a little too much right now. And then Kenny Golladay, who was very, very disappointing very recently. I mean, when you go back to the Lions, he was maybe one of the more talented overall receivers in football, down the sideline, deep down the field, contested catches specifically. Goes to the Giants and was just extremely disappointing. We've seen bad play, inability to get on the field. I think we see bad attitude and mainly poor work ethic. So that's not appealing, obviously. But, I mean, if you get him in the right team and the right quarterback, the talent's got to be in there somewhere. I know he has durability concerns as well, but the talent's got to be in there somewhere. I'm not saying somebody's going to get all of it out of him, but Nelson Aguilar, I mean, last time when we saw him on the Raiders, he was fantastic, deep threat, and then just didn't work out with the Patriots. Some receivers not really working out with the Patriots. Just get him in the right spot. Got some talent still. Marvin Jones up there in age, but solid receiver from the Jags. Isaiah McKenzie was actually cut this morning. The Bills, they liked him in the slot a bit. Receiver, got some speed. Marcus Golden was cut before free agency from the Cardinals. A 3-4 edge rusher. Teams looking for 3-4 edge rusher. Panthers, Seahawks. Teams like that. Could he end up being a rotation 3-4 edge rusher for some of those teams? Andrew Van Ginkel could move around a bit. Of the Dolphins. Heard he's been getting some interest. Melvin Ingram, Dolphins, who was a playmaker last year, up there in age, but been a playmaker. Justin Houston up there in age, but was pretty productive last year. Van Noy, kind of a unique off-ball / edge guy. Played a bit off the edge last year for the Chargers. Some of those guys are veterans. Ingram through Van Noy on the list there, getting up there in age, but they still got some things left in the tank. Still got some knowledge. And then one more page of guys here. Denzel Perryman, who's a tackling machine, good run stopper, coming off an injury from the Raiders. Already had some interest from the Texans and the Titans. Anthony Walker, he's still young, still getting better. Some injury concern there. Inside linebacker, used to play for the Colts, the Browns. Mike Edwards, the Bucs safety, really good in the box, really good blitzing. So a team looking for, something like that. The Giants come to mind. The Steelers, I think a really good fit with the Steelers would be as well. Back with the Bucs, more team. There's more teams out there, but those teams come to mind right away. That's an underrated free agent as well. Jalen Mills was cut this morning from the Patriots. We've seen him throughout his career play safety and corner. He goes to the Patriots and gets more experience playing man. So I think a team definitely could be interested there. Ben Jones, the Titans center, was a surprise release, probably near retirement. But a very solid center. Not a surprise release was Taylor Lewan from the Titans. Used to be one of the better left tackles of football, kind of went downhill and then just kept getting injured. Talent's got to be in there if he stays healthy. Calais Campbell, up there in age, but a solid 3-4 end, from the Ravens. Dwayne Smoot, which we haven't heard much of recently, but was good when he kind of fit the Jags scheme a little better. Now doesn't really, to me, maybe more of a 4-3 end. So a 4-3 team looking for, if they're weak in terms of that position, they could use them to start them, or a team looking for a high-end rotation guy at that position. Matt Ioannidis, who was pretty good for the Panthers last year, interior type guy. I think they could get him back, and I thought he would fit like a 3-4 end. A'Shawn Robinson's a guy that, he's been decent. I think he's, a lot of it's playing next to Aaron Donald. Still young, still got some upside. Teams that missed out on D tackles could be looking for him. Matt Filer was released very recently. A guard from the Chargers, got some experience starting there. So a team could look for, if they're looking for, a team that, desperate for a starting guard, or a team that has a lot of injuries on their O-line, looking for kind of a experienced former starter that could be their backup in case they have to fill in. The William Jackson, who it says Steelers, but he never played it down for the Steelers, but he was technically on the Steelers last. They cut him. He was on the Bengals originally, was pretty damn good there, went to the Commanders, was okay, and then started playing less. They looked just as good without him at the cornerback position. Traded the Steelers for next to nothing, and then was injured, just never played. The talent's in there with him, but I don't know what's going on with him in general, so we'll see what happens there. And there, of course, there are more solid free agents out there. I kept listing more and more and more. It kind of defeats the purpose, talking about like the best available. But we listed quite a few for you guys here. Maybe some more guys will get cut. Definitely will. Don't expect a whole lot, though. The next like big wave of cuts is not till preseason, like towards the end of preseason there. But there will be more cuts here and there as teams add guys, and like we don't need this guy in the draft. Got this guy, the guy we wanted, so we can move on from this guy. But don't expect a huge list of guys here. But but they're still happening. I mean, Jalen Mills was cut this morning. Isaiah McKenzie was cut this morning. So, I mean, there will be some, actually. So, we'll see. Let me know your guys' thoughts. If you think I missed a sleeper guy, go ahead and let me know in the comments. Always talking with you on Twitter. But as you can tell, there's some pretty good guys still out there, and teams kind of waiting to strike. And there could be kind of a wave of signings at any given time here, or it could be slow. But we got you guys covered with all things NFL. The draft is next, right around the corner. Can't wait for that. We'll try to have an updated mock for you next week, the post-free agency mock draft, even though it's technically not post-free agency, but those are always fun. That is going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.